Let's get this show on the road. Wherever you are, get in your car and come on down, enjoy a show. If it's your first time, we'll jump on in. By the end of this drive, you'll be a Shavian. No, let's get this show on the road.
Hey, Spike.
Hi, Kelly.
How's it going?
It's going, but wow, I am in the thick of it. For sure.
What are you... I think I know all the things that you're doing this. What are you doing this year? You're always doing so much.
Well, as a blessing, but also what have I done? Because it's all of our, as we work as artists, it's just really hard to say no when people come knocking on your door. So the shows I'm working on, I had a wonderful opportunity to just dip my toe a little bit into One for the Pot, where I get to see you in rehearsals, and that's fun. Just having some fun putting together a little tango that is in the show. A very funny moment between Camille and Peter on stage, which is great. And then my actual movement direction shows are Heartbreak House, which is the Shaw play, which the layers in this show, oh my goodness, like the text, every single time I come across a Shaw play, I fall in love with him even more. And I think the most compelling thing is the way he writes women. They're so strong and assertive, and they actually turn the tide of the stories so profoundly. The relationship and the dynamics of the women and the way he writes them, just incredible. I'm also working on Amadeus, which is my first time back on the festival stage in a few years. And I realized I was getting real cozy in my studio theater, like cool, independent, like off-guard, productions, and getting to try some cool things like Gannett and The House That Will Not Stand. And I was like, yeah. And now I'm on the festival stage. I'm like, oh, that's like the big one. I have to do some fancier things with that one. So that's a good little kick in the pants. And then I am actually really, really looking forward to working with Philip Aiken on Ohio State Murders with Sophia Walker, and really looking forward to that piece and some of the ideas that Philip is cooking for that show. It's a real gift to work with him as a director. So it's 4 shows. They are spread apart fairly well over the course of the next 3.5 months, but there are times when I will be sprinting between one room and the other and across the hall from festival as this show techs to the other show as it's teching, and I will get
those
my
steps in.
Yeah,
Get that cardio.
And what about you, Kelly? What's your adventure this year?
This year I am in One for the Pot, which we have just started previews for. It is a blast. We're making each other laugh. We're making the audiences laugh. Hopefully they continue to laugh. And it is really a tour de force for everyone on stage, but I will say in particular for Peter Fernandez, Martin Happer, and Sanjay Talwar, who are really just doing the lion's share out there with this highly paced British farce, which is going to leave both the actors and the audience, hopefully, with sweat on their brows. Yeah. It's a ton of fun. And then in addition to that, I'm doing all the digital stuff. So producing this podcast, doing some videos, both for the Capital campaign, some new campaigns that we have coming up.
And we're going to get to talk about some of these really cool projects as part of the campaign. I'm looking forward to one of the things that we've discussed is really being able to highlight our new Shaw Artists Village. And I'm really excited that we'll get to unpack that a little bit and what is happening over there.
Yeah, we have a whole episode dedicated to that later this season. And for people who don't know, the Shaw Artist Village is a major part, a new major hub of the Shaw Festival that is pretty awesome. It just opened its doors earlier this year, and the potential that this building has is enormous. What else are we doing this season on the podcast? There's a couple pretty cool guests that we have coming on. Some people who are household names. We've got one Mr. Stephen Fry, who we're going to hear from, as well as a Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, which if you would have told told either of us, I think, a couple of years ago that you would be sitting down and chatting with BJJ. It's
Don't
just
make me
like,
nervous. I'm already nervous.
You'll be great.
I said, what do I have to say except I love you, I love you, I love you, I love your work.
That's
I
all
think you're awesome.
That's all anyone ever wants to hear. Let's be real.
I'll try to think of something a little more creative than that when I get there. But this is a really exciting episode today because we're actually talking about, again, in addition to everything happening with our campaign, is the Royal George is officially closed and that process of the rebuild has begun. And so we get to actually hear about our new space. It's a new but an old visitation to the past of the beloved courthouse. And what I'm looking forward to is we did ask our production director for all of the productions here at the Shaw Festival, Russell Martin. He is going to stop by to have a chat with us before we get to our interview with Patrick and Sepehr about the rebuild, about building this theater in the courthouse. And it's a really fascinating process to be able to hear all of the work and design that went into literally building every part of this theater into the space that you will see if you go and see this show.
Yeah, I think that audiences will be surprised at, because when I first heard that we were going to be doing this as a temporary home while the George was being worked on, my first thought was, temporary means temporary.
Mm-hmm.
But when people walk in, it does not feel temporary at all. It feels like, it feels like thrown back to the old days when we used to have the courthouse as one of our main spaces.
Yep.
So on today's show, we are going to be talking to Sepehr Reybod and Patrick Galligan. Sepehr is in his second season here at the Shaw. You may remember him last year from Tons of Money and Major Barbara. And this year he is in Sleuth and One for the Pot.
And of course, the ever gracious and charming Patrick Galligan, who has been one of the company members here at the Shaw for 23 seasons. And you would have seen him most recently in Major Barbara, in Gannett, Witness for the Prosecution, One Man, Two Governors, and his bio, the shows and productions that he has been involved with over the course of his career. It's truly remarkable. And the thing that I love about Patrick is he still enters each season with as much curiosity and joy as if it was his first one. So a really lovely conversation between someone who is been at the Shaw Festival for 23 years and someone who is just in their second season and yet find themselves on the stage together in this beautiful production of Sleuth as part of the cast for that show. So it's very exciting.
Before we talk to Sepehr and Patrick, let's hear from Russell about building that courthouse stage.
My name is Russell Martin. I go by he, him, and I'm the director of production here at the Shaw Festival.
And what does that role entail? I know the list is long, but in a nutshell, if I am, someone who is unfamiliar with all of the behind-the-scenes stuff that goes on, what does your job entail?
At the nutshell, like everything that you see on the stage physically, like lighting, set, costumes, those departments are all sort of under the production umbrella. So, I oversee all the teams that build all of those fantastic elements and all the teams that run the shows and hire the designers that design these beautiful things. I work very closely with Natalie, who's our producer in terms of the creative teams. She does the ethereal creatives. I do the material creatives, set lights and stuff like this.
Nice.
So, it's so I've got like 3 TDs and 20 department heads, and there's a few folks working behind the scenes to make it all happen.
And TD in the acronym theater world is technical director. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Great.
So each venue has its
Awesome.
own technical director, and they're responsible as the day-to-day, like what's happening in that space, what's coming in, will everything fit, and making sure all those intricate logistics come together. So they tend to be in the now and 6 weeks ahead. I generally try and, live 6 to 8 months ahead to make sure that if I'm doing everything the way I'm supposed to, then by the time it gets to them, many of these things have been solved or worked out, and try and make sure that everything's ready so that they're not slowed down when it gets to them.
Wow. And so, as you were saying, you sort of oversee all of the productions that are happening in the festival theater. and the new Shaw Artist Village, which is what we call the Sav. And now the Royal George is no longer there. So what have you done, Russell? How have you solved this?
If I could solve all the ills of the world. So I arrived about 18 months ago, and at that point, some of the stuff was already in process. None of it had been designed, though we hadn't yet started construction on that. The courthouse, there was an acknowledgement that if we were going to renovate the Royal George, we would need to find a space to put on the same performances, the same quality as we'd done at the Royal George. And since the courthouse, a much beloved older venue that had, I think many people would associate the courthouse with the Shaws, their first experience here in shows. And so Don Fidlinson, who my predecessor, and Leslie, our master carpenter, had already kind of come up with an initial plan of what that would look like. So when I came on board, there was already the genesis of what we wanted the space to look like. We wanted something that would capture, what everybody loved about the courthouse. Like the old courthouse, as beloved it wasn't very welcoming for anybody who had any mobility issues or so on. So in the new iteration, Leslie and Don came up with a great design that allowed accessibility in wheelchairs to come in and create sightlines. And initially, working through this, we were going to use seating similar to what we use in the studio. And then I can't remember who it was, whether it was Tim or TC or somebody was like, well, what are we doing with all the old Royal George seats in the 3 years? And we're like, well, I know where we can store them. And so as soon as the Royal George got decommissioned, we just started taking the seats out of the Royal George by the truckload and installing them in the courthouse. So the seating makes a huge difference. They're comfortable. The sidelines are great. We managed to make something that sort of feels like home, but professional and not just something put together. And I think it's going to be a great experience.
I did not realize that those were the Royal George chairs. And again, they are much more comfortable. I remember the iteration of the courthouse from my first season here at the Shaw. And it had that feeling of a space that was there just for this and would be taken down. And that's what, you come in, you do this, you set this up. And then, this actually, I was really struck when I walked into this to see the preview of Sleuth going into the space, could not envision the way that rehearsal space of the courthouse that we are usually in, with the high balcony at the back. I had one of those real illusion moments where I could not see where the balcony actually is. Russell, where's the balcony?
Yeah. Well, we didn't get rid of it, but it's the very
I actually
rows.
thought that's what had happened.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
Well, when Leslie and Don initially did the math for the risers, they started off where the balcony is and did the risers down from there. So it's just a nice, easy egress. And there is two in that balcony rail. There were two plugs that we could take out from our old setup. And so they just take those two plugs out and you can walk up and so the last two rows of seating are the old balcony. And the other thing we did was the booth used to be on top of the staircase in the balcony. So we moved the booth to the other side. So that staircase that's in the balcony that you'd use to get up there is now open and accessible for emergencies, but also for latecomers or, if you know what you're doing, you can sneak down and get to the bar before anybody else at intermission down those stairs. So yeah, it had some fringe benefits there for sure.
Insider knowledge.
Yeah, yes. And if you're a person who likes a lot of leg room, row L is the widest row because it was the audience that was underneath that. So that would be like your business class seating on the flight. A little room to stretch out.
All right, folks. You heard it here from Russell. Right. This is row L. We should have a ticket price. No, I'm just kidding. So one of the things I wanted to know, okay, so we've got the planning of this that Leslie and Dawn actually took care of that before your arrival here at the Shaw. In terms of your role in making that happen, what were some of the challenges that you found along the way? Like, how easy or difficult was it to be able to put all of those wheels in motion?
Yeah. Firstly, we had to find out the proper time to build that because Leslie out in our shop certainly had the skill set and the staff to do it, but we had to find a window in between building the shows that we saw on the festival stage and so on. And then we went through the planning process because I think when the courthouse was originally done so many years ago, there was less focus on that sort of thing. So we went and worked very closely with the town to make sure that the structure we were putting up met modern day requirements from an engineering and a safety perspective. We had somebody do a study on egress to make sure that in case of emergency, we had all the appropriate exits and could get people out in a timely manner, making sure all the materials were appropriate. And the nice thing, unlike the old version, we've rented the courthouse continuously for 3 years, so we don't have to take it down. We can leave it up in the off season and just leave it there for the full 3 years that we anticipate being there. And then Leslie built the whole thing in the paint shop. We also involved Kevin Lamont and Judith Bowden in there because we wanted to make sure that the base aesthetic of the venue would support all of the designs that were coming in there, right? So in terms of what the floor looked like and the paint coat for the default, and we added a secondary proscenium just downstage of the courthouse's existing one, so we could put a traveler in there and a second. So we tried to build a venue where maybe not every element would be used in any one season, but that as a designer come in next season, you go, oh, there's a cyc. I can use the scrim. I've got this traveler here. So we tried to set up the venue as a playground for future shows and give them a good baseline on that. So yeah, it was some sleepless nights as we're working through some of the process, but.
Right. So just my last question for you then, how did you find the Shaw Festival? How did you come across this position and what made you want to take a chance to go for it?
Strangely, I'd been at the Manitoba Theatre Centre for 15 years as the director of production there. And Kevin Lamont was doing a show with us a few years ago, Clue. And I'd actually known Kevin for 3 years. I worked with him years ago at some other venues and stuff like that. So Kevin and I just got to talking, and he was talking about Shaw and the environment and the things. And I'd always heard great things about the Shaw, like in terms of its community established, that unlike, that sometimes large organizations become a bit disassociated with the personnel, and that Shaw wasn't like that. And, all of the great things that Shaw did in terms of keeping people working through the pandemic and all of those struggles, it was always sort of, you don't always remember what people say, but you always remember how they make you feel. And Shaw had always given out a very good vibe in that way. And I'd known people who had worked here before. So when the position came open, I'd been at MTC for a long time, and I loved MTC. It was great people, and we got along, but it felt like it was a good time for a change, and my kids were growing up, and it just seemed like an opportunity came at the right moment. So, I reached out and applied for it, and here I am 18 months later.
And here you are. We gotcha.
Yeah. With one of 6 Winnipeggers now, but yeah.
Oh, I noticed. Listen, the balance to the East Coast, Prairie Field, and the West Coast, we're at a little bit of a tug of war right now. I noticed this creeping in. Well, thank you so much, Russell, for coming in and talking to us about our new sort of not so new space. And we're looking forward to everyone's experience as they come down to the Shaw to see the shows there. Thanks,
I think
Russell.
it's going to be one of my, I just love being that close to the shows, and you get so. It's a feeling you don't always get in the larger venues, and I think it's going to be one of my favorite places to see a show.
Awesome. Thanks, Russell.
Hey, thank you.
Hello, I'm Neil Barclay with this week's trivia question. While writing Sleuth, Anthony Shaffer toyed with naming his play after a composer-lyricist whose passion for puzzles and murder games was well known in 1970s New York. Who was this musical theater legend? Make sure you stick around to hear the answer.
I did not think I would be an actor, that's for sure. I thought I'd be a lawyer.
Oh.
My father is a retired judge. His father was a judge, both lawyers, to start their careers. So I went to the University of Toronto out of a nice Catholic boys' school in high school, and thought, well, I'll just do what, everyone else in my family does, and go to law school after 4 years of undergrad. But I was doing a lot of plays at the time, both at St. Mike's College at University of Toronto and University College, and then at Harthouse. And by the time I got to my 4th year, I thought, oh my God, if I'm not careful, I'm going to be a lawyer. So I, instead of applying to law schools, I applied to theater schools. I got into a Masters of Fine Arts program at York and did that and started auditioning out of there. And, almost 40 years later, here I am at the Shaw Festival on my 23rd season. Wow,
23 seasons.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the short version.
Right.
There's a longer version that involves me telling my parents that I'm not going to law school, I'm going to theater school. And they're like, you're what?
Sorry. Could you repeat that one more time?
Are you out of your mind? Well, nobody makes a living in theater. So they had since long become great fans, both of the theater and my work, and particularly the Shaw Festival. And so they came around in a big way.
Eventually, yes.
Yeah.
And what about you, Seps? When did theater find you?
I think I always was the performer in the family and knew I was going to become, an artist one way or another. But I when I was 13, we did a school tour to our intake high schools where we were about to go. And this is such a silly story, but they give us a little tour of the high school that we were about to feed into the next year. And they did an abridged version of their musical that year, which was Grease. And there was this just like 25-minute version of Grease that they put on for the incoming kids. And they had leather jackets and lipstick, and the people were kissing each other. And I was 13 years old, so that meant a lot to me. And there's a moment where the actors, the girls and the boys are coming through the house where the audience is sitting, and one of them just brushed my shoulder, and I was sold. I was like,
you're done.
Next year, I'm going to go to high school. I'm going to do the school play. And then I did, and just kind of kept doing it. And then I think it was when I was 15, I was like, okay, this is really becoming important to me. It became really clear in high school that there's nothing else I was really interested in waking up to go to school to do but this. And it's kind of been the same attitude professionally. Just then it was theater school, and it was just kind of a direct, straightforward path. But there were times where I was like, oh, maybe journalism, maybe teaching English, maybe becoming a lawyer. But all those things kind of fell away the more I went towards theater.
And where was this? Where did this theater experience, this first moment, where did that happen?
It was at Richmond Green High School in Richmond Hill, which is not the high school I ended up going in, just north of Toronto, which is not the high school I ended up going to. I ended up going to a different high school because my parents wanted me to be part of the IB program, the International Baccalaureate program.
Yeah.
So I fed into one of those IB schools and then had to have that talk and say, hey, so I'm not going to be doing chemistry and biology. I think next year I'm going to drop out of the IB program and take drama.
Yes.
That was a yes.
That's great. Okay, so Patrick, just coming back to this time that the Shaw Festival first crossed your path. I know that's 23 seasons ago, but how did you come to be at the Shaw? What is that origin story for you?
Yeah, Jackie Maxwell's first season as an artistic director in 2003, I had done a number of shows at the Tarragon Theatre that she had directed. I had been in a number of plays with her husband, Ben Campbell. We knew each other from the Toronto days. Brenda, my wife, Brenda Robbins, knew Ben and Jackie, and I did. And so I was at Stratford in 2002, and at the end of that season, I was desperately waiting to hear if the Stratford Festival needed my services, and that call never came, but the call to join the Shaw Festival in 2003 did. So I thought, well, yeah, why not? Until, Stratford's ready to have me back, I'll go down to the Shaw for a season. And
and you realized what an improvement.
Totally, I did. I mean, the Stratford Festival is a wonderful organization, but I found my home at the Shaw Festival. It was very interesting. I remember I had, in the winter of after that 2002 season at Stratford, I had got a job offer in Toronto to do a gig, and it would have conflicted with the following season So I wrote, back in those days, I wrote a letter and sent it to a number of people in the administration, including the artistic director at the time, saying, hey, just curious, should I take this job? I didn't hear anything back. A similar thing happened, in 2003 season with Jackie. And 2 days later, she's like, come on in, we'll have a talk and we'll see what we can do. We can, do you want to do it? And it was clear that, at least to me, that there was a very, very sensitive administration to, they're interested in the people who worked there and their artistic development. That has been the case, all throughout Jackie's tenure and certainly with Tim Carroll, as you know. And it's interesting. The feeling is that, a theater company dedicated to the works of George Bernard Shaw has a socialist, humanist approach to its work. You're known, you feel cared for in a way that perhaps a bigger hierarchical system, kings and queens and princes, and then the underlings, the hierarchy of a Shakespeare universe does not. So I have remarkably found a home and a family at the Shaw Festival that I could have only dreamed of in my younger days, and that's why I'm so
here.
thrilled. I'm still here and
So
still
great.
feel supported and loved and challenged and embraced and nurtured to be the artist. And I see I'm not alone in my colleagues around, and I see it in the newer company members like Sepehr and the old veterans like Sherry Flatt, and who are still learning and teaching and being part of that culture, which is remarkable.
Well, and this is one of the things that is so remarkable about Sleuth, is the fact that you Patrick, and you are only, you're in your second season. So when did the Shaw Festival find you? When did that moment happen for you?
I first became aware of the Shaw Festival on a school trip to see Cabaret in 2014. It was my high school class trip. And it really changed how I felt about theater. It was the first time seeing a show with a revolve and with such a crisp vision. And that show, that musical is so affecting, it's really piercing. And it was directed by Peter Hinton, which was a fantastic coincidence because right before last season, which was my first season working on Major Barbara with Patrick right here, who has been, and we'll talk about Patrick in a second.
Yeah, pause and we'll come back. Yeah,
we'll come back to that. And so he called me and asked if I would be interested in coming to the Shaw Festival to work on Major Barbara with Peter. And I said yes. I'd come up over my theater school days. I'd seen an Octoroon and had seen other works here as well that I really, really appreciated, and found this place to be dedicated to theater for everyone and this two-way idea of theater, of engaging with people and also taking risks. And I really connect with that as an artist. So I said yes, and I came. And
okay, hold on.
yes.
I just need to go back. So you came to the Shaw Festival for the first time when you came to see Cabaret, directed by Peter Hinton. And then many years later, you're getting a call from Peter Hinton to come and work at the Shaw Festival, to be introduced to the artistic director and audition and get in. And you were then directed on stage by that.
Yep. You put it so
Wow.
perfectly.
Wow. I mean, there are full circle moments, but that is a full circle moment.
Totally. Very full circle. And I almost couldn't believe it because I didn't know that I was watching a Peter Hinton show when I was first seeing Cabarets. There was a whole,
Right.
it was
Yeah.
unknown to me that the circle was beginning. And he came in, I went to York University for my bachelor, where Patrick did his master's. And so I met Peter there. He came in and did our fourth year show. And that's kind of where the dots started to connect. And and that was my first season. I hope this is all right to say, Patrick, playing a role that Patrick had played before in Major Barbara as Bill
Wow.
Walker. And
Golly
there was a
Moses, that's
connection.
another
I
full
know.
circle moment. You too.
Oh, I know. And part of my fantastic experience last year was having artists like Patrick and mentors, people I really admire in the work and in the performance of it and in the room with such confident leadership and kindness. So there was after one show where I wasn't really sure what was going on during Major Barber, like in the middle of the run, Patrick comes up to me during the intermission and says, "That was great." And that was one of the best days I've ever had.
Wow.
And so now to be working with him on Sleuth in another role that he's also played before.
This is so wild.
I feel all the circles, there's a whole...
You are the center of the universe at this moment.
The Patrick Galligan legacy track, I think is what's happening. But it's been a real pleasure.
It's
been a real pleasure.
Great. I go, I watch Sep and I think, that's how you do it. I wish I'd seen that, 20 years ago.
Oh, right. Oh, dear. All the hindsight is 20/20.
Indeed. And I did. Oh, God, he's good. That's good. I never got that. Yeah.
That's right. So let's talk about Sleuth. Seth, I'm going to start with you just to come back to tell us a little bit about who you play and who this character is.
I played Milo Tyndall. He's a travel agent. He has a travel agency in London. He's the son of an Italian immigrant. He really believes in love and justice in the universe and wants to achieve things by his own merit and believes in a person's capacity to manifest their own destiny.
And how about you, Patrick? Tell us a little bit about who you're playing.
Andrew Wyke is a celebrated and very successful mystery writer who finds himself at a certain point in life alone, a wife who is preparing to divorce him, leave him for a younger man, and whose life is really about playing games and being victorious in those games, winning by guile, by deceit, by any means necessary. He finds that psychological warfare is really become the center of his existence, whether imagined in the form of his character, his great detective, St. John Lord Marridew, who would be similar to Sherlock Holmes or Hercule Poirot in terms of the iconic detective of fiction, or whether it's in his books or whether in real life. And he invites young Milo Tyndall, who is his wife's lover, to his manor house one evening for a drink and proposes a game. And that is the beginning of our play.
I see. So what's it like coming back to the courthouse?
Oh, the courthouse, my first season in 2003, both shows were in the courthouse. So the courthouse has a very special place. In fact, the first Shaw show I ever saw was in the courthouse in the early 90s. Well, I can't even remember the name of it. It was a creaky Canadian prairie drama, a beautiful production of a middling play. And the courthouse is where it all started in 1962, of course. This was the origin of the Shaw Festival, was the courthouse. So to come back there, in terms of circles being closed, it's sort of there is a homecoming sense of that. It's a different configuration. We were in a 3/4 thrust when I first, it was the first orientation of that theater when I arrived. This is a true proscenium, so the theater's the audience is on one side of the stage and the actors are on the other. But it's still, there's a feel to it, there's a smell to it, there's an environment that is very evocative of my first wide-eyed experience as an actor coming to perform on that stage. It's glorious, and I'm glad we're back. I love that space. It was my favorite space until we had to shutter it, yeah.
It was really beautiful to come back and see kind of a reimagining of the space as well, the way that they have set up where the seating is and how they've incorporated a little bit more flow, it feels like, in that space that they learned from their time there before. It was shut down in terms of just becoming a rehearsal space for us. And now this return, this design, it felt so open and the acoustics were fantastic.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
good.
Absolutely.
Yes, okay, good.
Absolutely. So Sepehr, can you tell us a little bit about what was the rehearsal process for this show like? What was it like? I know he's not here, so we can talk about Peter Fernandez and how I imagine a miserable process it must have been with that director. But can you share with us, what was it like to get this play up on its feet?
Yeah, I had never worked with Peter before, even though I'd worked with Patrick before. And it was my first time working with the rest of our cast mates as well. And so it was a bit of a discovery what the vibe is going to be like. But each person has a lot to do in this show. And with that comes a lot of text and a lot of technical things that have to get done. So what was, I think, essential that for me was to front load all my learning. So do as much learning of the lines, of the text, of what the mechanics of the show are going to be before arriving for day one. Because when you come see the show, you'll understand how many moving parts, how many variables, everything's kind of hanging on by a thread in a house of cards, you know? And so once with the text under our belts, it became a lot easier to parse through. And Peter Fernandez, you know, say what you will about him, but I think
we love you, Peter.
We love you, Peter. It was incredible working with him. He's such a sensitive director who is really an actor's director, giving direction and clues as to where the vision is going in a way that really made it feel like it was coming from the work and not from the outside in, which just allowed me to have a lot of ownership over my own work and over our collective work, which is something that in a rep season where you're doing 100 shows over 7 months, feeling that ownership and responsibility is key to enjoy doing it every day because it feels like your own. And so I loved working with Peter and Patrick and the other fellas. And once we started to get into the mess of it, into the craze of the show, that trust that was built through that level of working was essential so that I could say, am I looking foolish unintentionally? You know,
always, right?
Yes. Well, yes, exactly. But no, I felt, and I still feel every time we get back in there that I can do the work with dignity and trust and fun.
Yeah. What about you, Patrick? What was that rehearsal process like?
Well, we are Peter's debut cast for his first professional show as a director. And you'd never know it in the room. He's an incredibly smart man. His command of the rehearsal hall belies his relative inexperience, but he's such a smart actor, as Sep said. He knows what it is to be an actor. He knows what is useful to us. He said, we're going to get a lot of reps in. We're going to do a lot of runs of this play. Sep and I think it's fair to say, Sep, that we carry the lion's share of the drive of this play. And so it was really good to build up that endurance by just going through it time and time again. And he polishes and he's rigorous and he doesn't let you get away with anything. But it's all done with such respect and love, and primarily with a view to telling the story as the playwright intended.
Right.
He's not heavily conceptual. He honors the intent of the playwright as he understands it and as we all come to understand it. I would work with him again in a heartbeat, and I'm really proud that Tim Carroll and the creative management spotted the talent in Peter Fernandez as a potential director and giving him a shot. It's a big risk for a theater company, you know. And but they gave him a spot in the intern directorship program 2 years ago, and I think they've found a wonderful director to continue his career at the Shaw Festival and elsewhere. And he's been mentored by one of the greats, Chris Abraham, and so his pedigree is considerable, and I think we feel really lucky to have him as our leader.
It's a dream.
One of the things I noticed in this show is there's a lot of physical stuff that happens. There's a lot that takes place on the stage. What are some of the challenges that you might encounter with all those moving parts that you talk about? And is there a particular story that has come up so far about addressing any one of those challenges?
I've broken many props to talk about stories. I shattered glass on stage. I've bent metal pokers, ripped ripped my pants. It's just the budget had to be enormous to just make it actor proof.
Okay, this is an
And I'll find a
apology
way.
to Alexa and props for that
Yeah.
work list that gets sent.
Yeah, indeed. So there's a lot of those moving parts and making sure that you're respecting the props and that also that they're up to snuff to, shout out to the props and the design team and everybody who works on that show because not just the physical work on stage, but the tangible objects that need to be robust and have an endurance to them. So there's that element. And then there's also the safety element of there are things on the floor and you don't want to trip or slip on something, but those things need to be there because the meticulousness of the script and the show is that things need to come back or they need to be in specific places in order to make the whole thing work. So there's a level of reckless abandon and that actors, proprioception, that level of awareness to your physical body and space that needs to always be attuned to those variables so that you're safe and that the work can continue.
What about you, Patrick? What have been some of the challenges in this one?
Well, the audience comes in and sees this very nice set that is the drawing room, I suppose, of a manor house in Westshire, and it gets trashed. I mean, we announce we got to trash this house, right? And we go about trashing it in a very fulsome way. And I think it's fair to say it's never trashed the same way twice. So we have to both do a good job at trying to control it, but also it's an impossible task. There are things that get flown all over the stage, clothes, paper, set pieces. There's shards of broken pottery that smashes. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on. So as Sep pointed out, there's an element of control and then an element of absolute anarchy where you cannot be sure that anything is in the same place 2 shows running. So what happens is you have to have both, you've got this eye to keep the action moving forwards, keep the text driving, keep your target very specifically aimed and ferociously pursued, and with an eye, don't make sure you don't trip over that and look over there. There's a slipping hazard over here. And okay, you're not going to be able to move there. You're going to have to move around that thing. So there's this, and by the time we just even get to the interval, you're like, oh, wow. Whew. And then wipe down and reset and get ready to go again. So it's unlike anything I've experienced, even having done the play before in 97. So almost 30 years ago, I played Milo. And even then, I think it was a bigger stage and it didn't seem to be quite as much stuff all over the place. So it feels like, wow. There are times, I swear, that I kind of look at Sep on stage and I go, oh my God, what are we doing, man? And I kind of I try to give him a little wink, just go, here we are, man. Here we are, dude. Oh my God. Anarchy, let's go. And, and he's like, yeah. So it's a kind of abandon that we don't often get. But all the while going, let's be safe, let's be careful. We've got one for the pot rehearsal tonight. We got to run tonight. We got to be intact. I can't, we've got another bunch of these to do before we've got 7 months to do this. So make sure you can do this and repeat it, but also lean into the chaos of it.
Right.
I have to say that signature Patrick Galligan wink on stage is one of my favorite parts of doing the show. When we're kind of looking at each other and one of us, we're like having a secret conversation just in that glance while we're talking as our characters. And I get a little wink from Andrew or from Patrick. Andrew's the name of his character, just to be clear. You know who you are. And I'm like, oh yeah, man, we're in it. And it's one of my favorite parts of doing the show.
I must say, perhaps it's not the most professional thing to do, but occasionally I like to acknowledge to a fellow player in a moment that we are doing this together. And it's an extraordinarily important thing to just acknowledge the partnership and the play and the joy of what we're doing. Just kind of go, look at us.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is what we live for.
Wow.
Here we are. Well, isn't it a miracle?
What a blessing.
It's a real gift. And then move on and like not land in it, not sit in it, just a quick kind of wow, woo, and then bang, we're on to the next thing. So I hope that doesn't, such an admission doesn't lessen my value to anybody. That's really not professional.
No, I don't think so, Patrick.
No,
It's incredible.
That's not how we do it, at Stratford.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I bet they do.
Yeah. Just as we start to wrap up here, you say it's a 7-month run. I mean, that is extraordinary. It's such a rare thing these days in theater to have such long-running shows. What are some of those tricks? And now, again, I realize, Patrick, 23rd season, you have a rhythm inside of these long seasons. And this is sort of a newer thing for you. What are some of those tricks or discoveries that you have found that kind of help to keep that feeling fresh when it's middle of August and you still have another 6 weeks of shows?
Go, Sep. Yeah.
Okay. I think sleep. Sleep is a big one. Making sure you're prioritizing rest and a little bit of whiskey, and a little bit of naughtiness, just a little bit of, no, not larceny, but just, making sure that you're also kind of reminding yourself that you're a live person. I like to be creative in the summertime. I do some painting. I picked up guitar again, and creating and using my brain, using that part of my brain for things that are not work related is also about keeping it sharp and keeping a relationship with myself intact. What's amazing about the Shaw Festival, something that I love about working here, I'm so delighted to be able to do this, is the community. Like that thing that Patrick was saying earlier about the family of the Shaw Festival, I feel so embraced. I have deep relationships with people I work with here that I can only know because I've worked here. And so those friendships also go a long way in maintaining a social net and maintaining a life connection with other people. Throughout the summer, we will experience the various fruit festivals and the waning summertime and the different moons that we'll have together. It's a real beautiful part of working here that keeps my cup filled.
What about you, Patrick?
The one extraordinary benefit of a long run is the opportunity to keep working on the material. The plays we do at the Shaw Festival are complicated, rich, deep, almost bottomless wells of discovery. So it becomes kind of a reverse curse when you're doing perhaps a regional theater with a 3 or 4 week run. You go, it's not enough time to actually learn in performance what the play really is. So I've never done a play at the Shaw Festival where I thought, well, that's about all there is to mine on this one. In fact, on the contrary, I thought, Major Barbara, we could have done that. I could have done that for the rest of my life and never fully plumbed the depth of Shaw's writing to any extent that would satisfy me or those of us involved in the production. Similarly with Sleuth, it is incredibly rich and complicated and technically demanding just to maintain the energy, to develop the endurance, to sustain it through the course of a single performance. So it does require, maintenance of decent intake of food, eating well, eating vegetables, eating protein before the show, getting rest, having, just not running out of gas and kind of going, okay, I flagged in the middle of the second act there. You need to do something in the interval. You need to hydrate and you need to have a little piece of salmon or something. So there's all those lessons, but ultimately the knowledge that we can still get better and better and better and deeper at this, and there is no end to the promise of discovery of the intricacies of this play and all of them, and that will nurture you for a very, very long, long time. Once you step back and go, I'm bored of this, then you're dead. Then it's, that does take some discipline, but it also takes a curious mind and a hunger to find out what else is there. What else is there?
God, your answer was so much better than mine.
Not at all. Not at all.
I don't know.
No.
I was with you with whiskey. I'm right there with you.
yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Whiskey is involved, and rum too.
Well said, Ted. Well said.
Yeah. Some white wine or anyway.
Yes,
Yeah,
all
so,
good.
but yeah,
Oh,
but it's the
that's-
depth of these plays that is the source of keeping curious over a long run.
That curiosity, that appetite,
Yeah.
that desire. It's, I think, again, why we keep coming back to do what we do, why we keep waking up in the morning and going through those times when, they're a struggle and there's some tough days, but this is it. This is the magic of it all. Okay, so my last question. As you know, we have a lot of listeners who make their way to the Shaw Festival, and in particular, there may be a few listening right now who have their tickets, and they're coming to see this show, and they are so excited. And they're going to come in and they're going to sit in that theater, and I'm just wondering, is there a little Easter egg or a little moment? I'm going to be looking for that little winky wink between the two of you now. But is there something that if I'm coming to see the show that would just be a little something, you know what, just watch out for this or keep an eye on that. And now I know this is a show where it's very important to be discreet because it is one of those wonderful mysteries. So what would you say we should keep an eye out for?
Wow.
Without giving too much away.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Within the limitations of what we're allowed to talk about, there are some reveals that are brilliant coup de théâtres that are in the offing. And I think that probably the greatest Easter egg is when you think the game is over, it really has only just begun.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And watch, what fascinates me is the shifting power balance. Who has the power at any one moment? Who is holding the cards? And sometimes it's very deceptive who's actually in control.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll keep our eyes open for that. What about you, Sep?
As a longtime listener to the podcast, I should have had something prepared, but I should have known better.
I do ask it in every episode. Yeah. and this one's a tricky one because there aren't many that you can. Maybe there's like a favorite moment or a moment that is a. You could watch this, and this is when I do this, or one of those moments.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll keep it on the topic of whiskey. Like, count the drinks that are consumed on stage, and it might reveal a little bit about what's going on.
Just a quick story on that. Archie McKenzie, our backstage, one of our great crew at the courthouse, he told a story of a production of Sleuth, and the two main actors were at odds, hated each other, and the actor playing Andrew Wyke insisted that for the closing performance, that the booze given to Milo be actual booze. Can you imagine that, Sepehr? Trying to do that show, with 6 whiskeys in, and that's just the first act.
Oh my God!
Imagine?
Wow.
Anyways, I assure you, it's not real booze, and thank God. But imagine if it were.
Yeah, that's the post show wind down.
That's right.
That's
right. Exactly. Not the onstage.
Not
show.
the onstage. No, that's brilliant. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been such a fabulous conversation. Really exciting to get to hear a little bit about the process of developing and rehearsing and bringing this play to life in the new version of the courthouse for this season. So congratulations to you both for opening and starting off. You are the first show out of the gate in previews. So that's a huge accomplishment too. But thank you so much for being here and talking with me today.
Oh, what a pleasure.
Thank you, Spike.
Thank you.
Earlier, we asked what title Anthony Shaffer was using while he was writing Sleuth, and the answer is Who's Afraid of Stephen Sondheim. Sondheim was notorious for the elaborate treasure hunts and murder games that he organized with his celebrity friends all over Manhattan.
Sleuth is playing until October 9th. Tickets available at shawfest.com.
Thank you to Patrick Galligan and Sepehr Reybod for joining us, and thank you as always for listening. If you have any questions, thoughts, or just want to say hello, we love to hear from you. So please drop us a line at podcast@shawfest.com.
Let's Get This Shaw on the Road is hosted by Alexis Milligan and produced by me, Kelly Wong. Original music by Travis Cito. We're available wherever you get your podcasts.
Next week, we'll be joined by Damian Atkins and Jeff Irving to talk about Jeeves and Worcester in Perfect Nonsense. And we'll also hear some insights from our membership services team.
We'll see you then.
Let's get this show on the road.